Hello, everybody. My name is Kamran Kardan. I'm CEO of Knowledge, a company based out in Dubai, UAE. But I'm joining you today from rainy Frankfurt after 3 days at the Frankfurt Book Fair with a lot of the interesting discussions. Great to hear all the insights from Ashley and Rob and to hear different perspectives. So what I would like to talk about is a regional focus. So when the open access movement started, I used to work at OUP, and this was at the time that Nucleic Acid Research, their flagship journal, was transformed into open access journal. Hindawi Publishing had just started, and it was really at the beginning of the discussion. I was studying at the time, I was doing my master's and curious about what's happening and what's going to happen. I actually did my dissertation about open access business models over 20 years ago. So since then, I've been really looking at the landscape very closely, hearing about the initiatives, what's happening. And 16 years ago, I moved to Dubai, UAE. I worked for a company for 6 years that was representing all the large publishing houses. So getting myself familiar with all ways that ins and outs of the publishing world from all the giants. And I decided to start my own company and to basically make a change and change them and be able to be mission driven and make an impact from a small scale of small company based out in UAE in a different way. So I'll talk about how a bit later, but what I would like to start is 2 years ago, we ran a big webinar during Open Access Week. It was the first of its kind in the region, and we had over 800 participants, and we followed up with a survey about attitudes towards open access publishing in the MENA region. And it was really, really insightful, the data that was coming out of it with regards to understanding the copyright, the different access, open access tiers, the view on predatory publishing, what APCs were, open access means not peer reviewed, and all of that actually led to a bigger initiative and a bigger move, but it gives some insights of the understanding of the open access landscape in the region. And what you see in the US, in the UK, and the rest of the world, it really didn't trickle to the Middle East region until many, many, many years later. And only recently, there are some examples of how things changed within the region. So currently today, there's an increased interest in transformative agreements and a lot in read and publish models. And the interest is definitely growing across national libraries and universities. And basically, what I would like to share with you are some examples from various countries that you can see on the slide. Now, as I said, like last year, 2 years ago, there were no, for example, agreements in certain countries, and that has changed. The examples I would like to give are, first of all, I would like to mention Egypt. Egypt actually, in 2016, they launched something called the Egyptian Knowledge Bank. And this was led by a ex-UNESCO employee who later became a Minister of Education, basically with the aim of helping the country move towards a learn-based society and a knowledge-based economy. And basically what they did is they opened up and they paid for resources to all publishers, to every citizen. So this was really supporting that whole drive that, okay, everyone can be a learner and should benefit by accessing scholarly literature. 3 years ago, they started experimenting with OA agreements, their national consortium deal. They negotiated various APC packages, but when it came to the implementation of that, I haven't seen that much success in terms of the trickling effect of those agreements to various individuals. However, at the same time, the SDDF, which is a funder within the country, have actually separately negotiated APC deals with publishers like Springer, and they're in discussions with Wiley and IEEE. Qatar is actually one of the countries that really started adopting and moving closely to with the open access movement early on. They were one of the first in the region that they launched open access journals. In the time, it was in partnership with Bloomsbury, not the normal choice, but they started a journal called Q Science, and it was basically the first open access journal in the region. Not in the region, in the country, because Hindawi started in Egypt many years before that. Since then, I think the funding changed, and those journals that they started from one, I think there were 10 or 12. At the end, they moved to one of the universities, Hamdan bin Mohammed, not bin Mohammed, one of the actual universities in Qatar. The name just disappeared in my mind. Saudi Arabia, I think KAUST was a leading example. They started with basically transformative agreements, and I just wanted to mention some more details from the experience in Qatar National Library. I've spoken to the main librarian there, and basically they supported read and publish agreements since 2018. They've got agreements with many of the bigger publishers. They also started having agreements with open access publishers themselves to have bulk APCs or discounted APCs from Dove Press, Frontiers, LB, MDPI, and other publishers. The experience that they shared was it actually made it easier to manage the funding process, because publishers did have the platforms for approvals, removed the burden of paying single APCs through a lengthy procurement process. They've so far 4,000 articles, and they believe that actually that's half of the demand that is required, and so more and more support that is needed within the country. However, the difficulties that they've faced are the various models that the publishers have, the various workflows. Educating authors on that is also quite complicated. Now, overall, what we find in the region, the challenges are the mistrust. There's a mistrust, there's a fear of predatory publishing. One big issue is the lack of incentives and mandates for researchers on national levels. That's still something that a lot of work needs to be done on. And when it comes to Arabic, there's less chance to publish in open for native Arabic speakers. For institutions, as mentioned from the case of Qatar National Library, there's difficulty in communicating the various workflows, national policies not being there, and too many business models. And basically for librarians, the various platforms do not support right to left and Arabic, and the forecasts are not there. And the cost sharing across all the different institutions is not that easy. Now, to what we as Knowledge have started to support the movement in the region. So we've started Forum for Open Research in MENA. This was basically a result of that webinar that we conducted during Open Access Week. And once we saw the demand, we thought that, okay, there's actually a need to support policymaking, educating, and support from successful cases in other regions. And we started by conducting community development events. We ran a regional event. Actually, we're having our second one next week in Abu Dhabi, which we partnered with UNESCO. And the forum is held in different Arab countries. Last year is in Egypt, and this year will be in Abu Dhabi. There's a lot of translation work that goes through the forum. And actually, one interesting item is we are about to launch a glossary for the open access terminology in Arabic. So, for example, the word used for open access was sometimes referred to as free, as various other words, which was not actually conveying. So that glossary in Arabic language was really, really missing. And this is something that we're going to announce during the event next week. The other ways that we supported, we actually first translated ThinkCheck Submit into Arabic and other languages of the region. And in partnership or with permission from ThinkCheck Submit, we launched ThinkCheck Attend, which was actually educating and raising awareness around predatory conferences. And there's a conference checker that supports researchers, and that's also translated into Arabic. But now talking about business models, and something that's always interested me, and listening to what Ashley mentioned about there is a cost associated to publishing. And let's not forget that the whole discussion and move towards open access was on a financial basis and the raising cost of access scientific publications. And as Rob mentioned, some of the society publishers, they cannot afford a move towards a fully open access publishing method without additional support. So looking at the various challenges around affordability, discoverability, and really having in mind that we really need to hold the playing field and reduce inequalities in accessing scholarly literature, we decide to, first of all, support open access discoverability. So we launched something called Zendi Open, which is free, and we have close to 500,000 users from around the world accessing free content. What happens to the paywall content? In a recent study, it showed that, well, there's still a large amount of content that is behind paywalls. You have smaller societies that haven't been able to move to open access. There's, of course, the hybrid journals. There are the older material. So a lot of the open access policies relate to current content and current publishing. What happens to all these articles that are back in archives? So there's still a large amount of content that is behind paywalls. So if we look at the spectrum, we look at paid content, we see open access content that is moving slowly. We see the rise of illegal contents. You know, we've all heard about the illegal websites that are providing scientific literature. There's no analytics going back to the publishers, and simply researchers are using it for affordability reasons, accessibility reasons. It's just easy to use, and that's also damaging to the community. So looking at various industries and what happened in Zendi, what we created was something called affordable access. So it may take time for everything to become OA. So something needs to be done about the content that is behind paywalls. How can you reduce inequalities and that? So the whole idea was to provide all the content on the platform and make it affordable, make it cheap, make this less than a single article. So the model is that if someone wants to subscribe to paywall content, they just pay a month subscription fee and they get unlimited access to all the content that is available. We all have our Spotify accounts. We all enjoy the freedom that we get on Netflix. So why cannot something be done for scholarly literature? I must say, this has been a 7-year project and a 7-year battle to get basically also permissions from publishers as well to make this happen. And just yesterday, we managed to launch the global subscription model with a handful of publishers we see, and they want to risk losing their big deals in many countries, and they want to provide an affordable access channel to the content that is still behind paywalls. So it's basically working with publishers to make affordable access to the research communities around the world. So I'll just end with some of the other regional activities that we do. We offer translations to the open access ecosystems, to ORCID, Duage, Crossref, PKB. We support Duage financially. We have a Diamond Open Access publishing platform, which is supporting Diamond Open Access publishing from from the region and supporting the development of university open access journals and presses so they can share and they can disseminate knowledge freely around the world. So yes, it's basically, from my side to summarize, there's a lot happening. Things were a bit later in the region that I'm currently residing. If you're mission driven, even if you're a small company, you can make a big difference. And basically, all those activities is something that a small company has started, and many of these have snowballed into what we can see right now. With that, I thank you for listening.